Good evening. My name is Kacper Paradowski and you are watching Poland Daily News. Yesterday afternoon, a protest was held in front of the Warsaw headquarters of the Campaign Against Homophobia against the court decision to arrest LGBT activist Michał Sz, who claims to be Małgorzata Sz, aka Margot, and was suspected of participating in a fugitive, brutally attacking a pro-life activist and destroying property. The protesters then moved to Krakowskie Przedmieście, where clashes with the police took place and a police car was attacked. The police detained 48 people. Politicians of the left stood shoulder to shoulder with the LGBT activists. The LGBTQ activist was caught on camera earlier this year attacking a pro-life activist near a school in Warsaw belonging to the militant communist Antifa organization. After assaulting the pro-life activist, the accused violent man used a knife to vandalize his car. Are there any competent pigs? Are there any police scum in bed with the ruling party? Is there someone from the prosecutor's office or not? The police and the government. We are dealing with a classic pattern. The law is broken, as a result the perpetrator is punished, and certain social environments progressively declare them a victim. The LGBT community will go further and further. The infamous Margot, who was arrested yesterday, was after being accused of assaulting a man, used a knife to destroy a van of pro-life activists. It was clearly an assault, classified as very serious, in both common sense and legal terms. And yet, attempts were made to make the detained person a victim in the eyes of the public. Their colleagues and other activists attacked a police car and were therefore detained and are now presented as victims as well. There is no way to put a stop to these arrests at some stage and look the other way, because they will go as far as we let them. They will target and attack churches and force such reactions, and there will always be a reaction, no matter the political cost. This is the price for living in our own country, for having a law-abiding state, for having a democracy in Poland, and for being able to choose such a system as is consistent with the will of most people. Nobody forbids these people to live as they want, nobody forbids them to conduct their personal affairs as they wish, but at the same time they cannot impose anything on us. It is unacceptable that a bandit who attacks a person is a hero and is protected by international institutions and by activists who attack the Polish police. This would lead to the collapse of any country. Although the Wola massacre is one of the greatest crimes of the Second World War against the civilian population, the Ochota massacre is a much less talked about wave of mass murder, looting, arson, torture and rape, which happened during the Warsaw Uprising in the Warsaw district of Ochota between the 4th and the 25th of August 1944. The perpetrators were primarily soldiers of the SS Rona Brigade Regiment, the Russian People's Liberation Army, who were suppressing the Warsaw Uprising as part of the German forces. About 10,000 residents of the Warsaw-Ochota district were murdered. In order to commemorate the mass murder against the civilian population of the Warsaw district of Ochota, Piotr Brulikis from the Janusz Kurtyka Foundation organized a remembrance march which passed today from the Grujecka Street to the former Zieleniak transition camp, stopping along the way at the building of the Radium Institute, Kołłątaj High School and the Staszic Colony.
Uczciwie powiem, że nie ma żadnej takiej publikacji.
I can honestly say that there is no book published to commemorate civilian casualties. The Warsaw Uprising is commemorated, but civilian casualties are not. That is why today, despite the hot weather, I decided to organize a march to commemorate civilian casualties, read aloud their full names, as well as the reports of those who survived. On this day before the uprising, I was sitting in the basement and I saw a few soldiers raping a sick woman in the hospital. I heard screaming all night long. One of the soldiers took me to the medical building and then tried to push me into the fire. During the Ochota massacre, sick women, as well as women from the medical staff, were brutally raped in the building of the Radium Institute, and the bodies of Poles were burned on a grill at Kołłątaj High School.
Na tak zwanym zieleniaku jest tylko jedna tabliczka.
There is only one plaque at the so-called Zieleniak. I want this plaque to be translated into English, and I want to add more information. For instance, what was happening at the Kołłątaj High School gym, because there was a grill where the bodies of Poles were burned. Today's march was attended by Warsaw residents who often have experience of war crimes in their family histories.
Moja babcia I dziadek przeżyli powstanie.
My grandparents survived the uprising. They both participated in it. Here at Zieleniak, my grandmother, when she was a little girl, hid in the cabbage box, and that is why she avoided raping. I know this story thanks to my family, and I want my daughter to know it as well, and to be proud of being a Pole. She lives in Warsaw. Children know very little about history these days, and I want my daughter to know this story and be proud of it. The march ended at the former transition camp, the so-called Zieleniak, now known as Halebanaha. Until the evening of August 5th, 1944, it was a home for several thousand people, and at its culmination, home for several dozen thousand residents of Ochota and the surrounding area. Zieleniak was a place of mass crimes and brutal rapes of women and young girls. The events of the Ochota massacre are commemorated by a symbolic plaque, although, according to the organizers of today's march, those victims deserve even greater commemoration. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will sign a new military cooperation agreement on the behalf of the US during his visit to Poland on August 15th. The news was announced today by Krzysztof Szczerski, head of the cabinet of Polish President Andrzej Duda. Apart from meeting with President Duda while participating in the military parade and the celebrations associated with the centenary of Poland's victory against the Soviet Red Army in the 1920 Battle of Warsaw, Pompeo will also meet with the head of Polish diplomacy, Jacek Czaputowicz, and Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. According to the new agreement, the US will move a significant number of US troops to Poland and also establish a forward headquarters of the 5th Corps in the country, which will be responsible for all US troops stationed in Central Eastern Europe. Britain's Finance Minister Rishi Sunak said on Friday that people are right to be frustrated with illegal immigrant crossings in an interview with the BBC. The minister referred to the migrants crossing over to the UK through the English Channel. As pressure mounts on the government to take action, Sunak said that the UK's Immigration Minister, Chris Philip, will be visiting France next week to hold talks on stronger measures as required to stop and reduce the tide of boats coming.
Well, I think people are absolutely right to be frustrated at the scenes they're seeing. I'm frustrated, everyone is, which is why we have been working much more closely with the French government in recent time to improve our cooperation and intelligence sharing to police crossings. What I can say is the Immigration Minister will be visiting France again, I believe next week, to discuss how we can step up that cooperation and take further action and stronger measures as required to stop and reduce the tide of boats coming.
Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage has in recent weeks shed light on the rapidly increasing number of migrants making the journey across the English Channel, putting pressure on the British government to act on the issue.
I wouldn't want to speculate on exactly what measures will be put in place, but what I can say is that the Immigration Minister will be in France next week. It's important that we work closely with our French allies on this situation. Obviously, France is a safe country for migrants to be. We all want to see these crossings reduced, and pending the outcome of those conversations, we can decide on the best next steps to take. But I very much sympathise with people's frustration about this. We all want to see the number of these crossings come down, and people should know that we remain committed to making sure that happens.
Border guards and coast guards in Britain and France have intercepted numerous attempted crossings in recent months, as migrants have repeatedly tried to travel from destinations in Asia and Africa to Britain. That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.